Every so often, a study comes along with such eye-popping conclusions that even before one analyzes the methodology or determines who funded the study, it proves very difficult to prevent the dial on one's BS detector from veering deep into the red zone. Such was the case when I came across a new study by Amy May Leach with the University of Ontario Institute of Technology in Oshawa. Dr. Leach's study pertains to the subject of veiling and lie detection, and her conclusion seems to run completely contrary to conventional wisdom, not to mention entrenched law enforcement techniques, which is to say, Dr. Leach's study contends that when someone veils their face with an identity-concealing niqab, it's actually easier, yes, easier, to detect whether or not that individual is lying. Dr. Leach came to this conclusion based on data from more than 500 people. Veiling one's face with a niqab actually improved lie detection because she says, quote, people were focusing on what the women are saying rather than what they look like, end quote. Now, you may recall that in a 2013 ruling, the Supreme Court of Canada effectively levied a courtroom ban on the wearing of niqabs by testifying witnesses. The court noted that, quote, there is a deeply rooted presumption in our legal system that seeing a witness's face is important to a fair trial, end quote. And I think the Supreme's got it right. Even so, the alleged sexual assault victim refused to unveil with men in the courtroom, so the charges were withdrawn. But Dr. Leach maintains the court got it wrong, given that her study suggests that wearing a niqab actually improves lie detection. Incidentally, the study was funded by the Federal Social Studies and Humanities Research Council of Canada. So yet again, your tax dollars hard at work, folks. In any event, in Dr. Leach's study, it was found that for unveiled women, witnesses spotted the liars at a rate of about 50%. But she says it was only when witnesses wore veils that observers performed above the 50-50 level. And here's where it gets somewhat weird. Dr. Leach says Islamic face veils seem to be the only kind of face covering that turn people into bad liars. In other words, a balaclava proved far less effective. Dr. Leach told me that she believes that perhaps the reason for this dichotomy is that a balaclava is associated with robbers, while a niqab is associated with someone who is deeply religious and therefore perhaps more honest. Even though it does bear repeating here that there's nothing in the Quran that mandates female Muslims wear any sort of face coverings. Personally, this study is a tough sell for me, but what do I know? So I reached out to Ross McLean, a crime specialist and security expert, as well as a former Toronto police officer. Turns out McLean isn't buying it either. McLean notes that when someone is being interrogated, the way eyes react to questions can be very telling. Granted, the niqab, unlike the burka, doesn't obscure the woman's eyes, but it does indeed obscure other telltale indicators that could reveal if the person is lying. This includes a sweaty brow, facial tics, smiles, grins, and raised eyebrows. Indeed, McLean notes, only half jokingly, that if a niqab is more effective when it comes to determining if someone is telling the truth, then why isn't the FBI getting those facing interrogation to don this face covering? Rather, he suspects the unspoken agenda here is yet more Sharia creep, namely normalizing clothing that is associated with Islamic fundamentalists. Still, it will be very interesting to see what will happen in the months and years ahead when a niqab-clad woman takes the stand. Will the judge insist she remove her veil? Or will he allow the testimony to proceed based on the findings in this new study? Time will tell, but for me, this should be a moot point. For I'm of the opinion that this hateful haberdashery should be banned from the public square entirely. After all, one of the reasons we enjoy a free society without checkpoints in every corner is that we can see what everyone looks like. But if one person were to be, say, physically assaulted by a niqab or burqa-clad woman, then that victim is at a distinct disadvantage if the offender's face is concealed. You simply wouldn't be able to identify the offender. And that's wrong. The burqa and niqab have no place in this country, at least not in public. In fact, many Muslim scholars contend these garments have no place in Islam either. Let's stop apologizing for this shameful garb. Let's stop showing reasonable accommodation to those who can be the most unreasonable of all. For the Rebel.media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.